So recital 3 of the regulation says best outcomes for patients and the society. And so it's about patients first. So it's a pleasure to have Valentina with us. Valentina Strammiello is heading the HTA group and the European Parliament interaction activities of the European Patient Forum. She has a background, a master degree in European studies, so from beginning on very focused on international environment. And before joining the European Patient Forum, she was with CIPI, which to my understanding is a think tank, an international think tank for networking across various disciplines. So yes, welcome and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jörg. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's actually one of the few times I have a chance to talk about HTA for medical devices. And it was a learning for me as well, I must admit. A quite intense exercise. So we can move to the next slide. Whenever I speak about HTA and patient involvement, I like to bring this because HTA, this is the essence of HTA. We need HTA to prove the value of devices or technologies in general, and so we don't get technologies and then try to prove their value. So I think this is also a good reminder for us. Next one. When it comes to medical devices, I wanted to acknowledge first that it's a very wide and diverse market, and so that's maybe one of the big challenges with medical devices. Still, medical devices have high impact on patients, whether regardless of the fact that they are directly or indirectly used by patients. So sometimes patients don't have a direct experience of a device, but still they are affected by their use. HTA is there to facilitate access. So I know that sometimes health technology developers are a bit afraid of the impact of HTA on their work, on the accessibility of these technologies. But HTA to me is there to facilitate access to those technologies that are valuable, that are high quality and safe. It's a way to really help the market understand in which direction we should go. Imagine healthcare professionals when they have to pick a device or another one. It's a kind of a jungle sometimes. It's difficult for them to identify what is best for patients. Next one. And here I wanted to summarize what are really the key area of interest for patients. First of all, this is something we have also discussed at the HTA stakeholder network meeting. Really, what matters the most for patients when it comes to medical devices is the safety. So we need to make sure that robust safety evidence is collected. We need also to make sure that there is a place for patients to share how they value benefits versus risks of devices, because of course there is always a matter of finding a good compromise, at which extent they are accepting the risk coming with the new technologies. We also support early involvement, and so both in joint scientific consultations and JCA. But of course, we also acknowledge that for patients to get involved, especially for medical devices, you may need some specific expertise, which may not always be easy to identify. We see JCA reports a very useful tool also to support our evidence-based advocacy. So we really support the idea of getting these reports in plain language for all patients to be able to use them in the national context and promote those technologies that have proven to be effective and safe. Last but not least, we also support the idea for comparative data to increase transparency and support HTA decision-making. We understand that when it comes to medical devices, this is not always easy yet, but I will come later to show maybe a solution or a partial solution to overcome these issues of lack of data. Next one. This is a slide that somehow summarizes the input I got from a chapter in the patient involvement in HTA book that was published in 2017, so quite an old one. But this is still good to show why we strongly support patient involvement in HTA for medtech. And it's all about improving satisfaction of patients, empowering them, and also gaining more control on their conditions. It supports also better compliance and improved self-management. leading to better health outcomes and reduced healthcare interventions and societal costs. This looks very simple, but unfortunately, when it comes to patient involvement in this specific sector, we still see quite poor involvement of patients, and we need to overcome this issue. It's not easy yet to get patients on board. Next one. And this is really a summary of the barriers that we have identified. Some of them are related to the heterogeneity and scarcity of HTA processes that includes patient perspective. We hope that with the HTA regulation, this issue will be overcome because patient involvement will be more streamlined, and the procedures also will be more or less standardized. We also see issues in terms of organizational aspects when it comes to patient involvement. And understand for HTA bodies to get the patient perspective on board, they need to structurally change the way they work. And so this is a great challenge also because it comes with capacity issues for them. It's not easy for us even to identify relevant patient profiles that can contribute. When it comes to medical devices, this is even a bigger issue compared to pharmaceutical products. Because, as I said earlier, patients don't always have the direct experience of those devices. And so it's really not easy even for them to be aware whether they had any interaction or not. Imagine and think of surgical procedures, for example. There are, of course, legal concerns. And as I said earlier, there is still limited experience of companies working with patients when it comes to medical devices. So we needed to build a culture which is not there yet, not fully. We have some very good examples, but it's not so widespread. Next one. This is really to show what we have identified as the key aspects of profiles that are needed for patient involvement in the HTA regulations. And our understanding is that these patients, we need quite diverse profiles. They need to demonstrate somehow a connection to the patient community relevant to the disease areas and show that they have a good understanding of the European international context. They should come, hopefully, with expertise and experience of the relevant disease. And also, I would say, that's my own addition, bring a good trade-off between the level of expertise and representativeness. Because imagine that those patients that are invited to a JCA or a JSC, they hopefully represent a whole community behind them. That they bring their own individual perspective, but hopefully it's not just the individual patient perspective, because that's unique to an individual patient, and sometimes not so representative of the broader community. And as I said also earlier, we need to show also how we can bring on board the patient perspective through other methods like patient experience studies, like this idea of patient experience data, which is something that we see as an avenue also to complement direct patient involvement in HTA regulation. Next one. And here is some results from a project EPF was part of. It was called CoreMD. It was an Horizon 2020 project. And we explored how patient-reported outcome measures can be used to capture the patient perspective and inform the evaluation of high-risk implantable devices. This project, I think, came to an end last year, or 2 years ago even. Last year. Yeah. Exactly. And I thought that maybe it's something interesting to bring on board in this discussion, because we want to bring the patient perspective. We can do it also through patient-reported outcomes. Next one. And here we have some key findings from the work we have conducted in this project. We basically organized a kind of, I would say, modified Delphi study with roughly 20 patients, mostly from the diabetes area, cardiovascular diseases. It was, of course, not easy to bring all the relevant profiles, but at least we had 20 of them. And we captured quite some interesting information. The first one is that patients want the data related to impact on quality of life to be captured and made available to support decision-making processes. They also think that their feedback really can enrich and support this device innovation. So here we are talking a lot about innovation and competitiveness in Europe. Think of patients as the way to make sure that the devices that are produced and made available in the market are meeting patients' needs, but it's also a way to really produce devices that are more innovative and are more effective. The use of patient-reported outcomes measures can also provide a more standardized way of collecting these informations about patients' lived experience with the device. But we also need to make sure that these measures are used more systematically because their usefulness is proven only if we have a great amount of data available. Otherwise, it's not so useful. On top of that, I would say that there is a need for alignment among decision makers and the stakeholders. Because, of course, if on one side, technology developers use this method, we need to make sure that HTA bodies also understand this method and can uptake it for their assessments. Last but not least, patients are willing to share feedback. And this is very true also when it comes to sharing information about adverse events. They feel it as a moral obligation because, of course, any bad experience needs to be shared to avoid further problems, further accident for other patients. And that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if you want me to bring them here already.
You can bring them because later on we will discuss.
Okay. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, I was asked to bring some criteria, some indicators, and they are the patient involvement in the joint scientific consultations and JCA. Then I thought of acceptance of decision outcomes, transparency of data about safety and effectiveness, and alignment between MDR and HTAR, and it was already presented by Monica. And then I thought that, of course, we need to show which measures we should use. For the first one, patient involvement, I thought that what we should measure is simply whether or not patients were involved in JSC. I thought of focusing just on JSC, because if I had to pick one area where having involvement, I would rather support joint scientific consultations, because the earlier the stage where patients are involved, the better it is for the overall process. And then when to measure, I would say following joint scientific consultations to inform the report. And whom to approach, I would approach HTA bodies from the coordination group and patient organizations. Of course, I'm very much aware that there is a high degree of confidentiality there, but if there is a level of transparency to support this process, it would be great. For the second one, acceptance, I thought that we should measure absence of complaints from the patient community when it comes to JCA, when I would say after JCA report publications, and I would approach HTA bodies and patient organizations. For the third one, transparency, I would measure the release of publishable data when following JCA report publications, and I would approach both HTA bodies, health technology developers, and patient organizations. And the last one, on the alignment, I would say that the measure would be absence of process bottlenecks. And when following the full HTA at European national level, I would wait for the full process to be completed to make this assessment. And I would approach HTA bodies, health technology developers, and patient organizations.
Thank you very much, Valentina. Those are the areas that we will then discuss in part 2, and we are just introducing them for you because that's a starting point of the discussion.